All right. Well, now we're live on Facebook too. Hi, everybody on Instagram. Hi, everybody
Hello.
on Facebook. Welcome to True Mental Health. I'm Crystal Crawford. This is Dr. Janine Kraft, and we are talking today
We
about
are
stuff and
always very
things.
things, very serious matters.
Okay, so today is what?
Tuesday.
Imposter syndrome and Tuesday.
Yeah, imposter syndrome Tuesday. So why
Okay,
imposter
so this
syndrome?
came from, I have to move my phone, guys, sorry, we're like multiple devices here. So Riva, in my community, Riva asked this question. She's like, I'm dealing with looking at my choices, and my question about it is, what would it take to not make me wrong for what I choose? I'm looking at self-doubt, and my question about it is, what would it take to be at peace? And as you and I were looking at just the energy and, kind of the themes popping up everywhere, you's like, well, why don't we talk about imposter syndrome? And I'm like, what?
What is
So
this word
Janine,
you speak
what
of?
is this word you speak of?
Yeah, well, imposter syndrome, it was coming up along with my folks who I was running a beta program with, some entrepreneurs. And so the idea of imposter syndrome being that, well, the definition was something around high achievers overly doubting themselves. So someone almost doubting their abilities in a way that doesn't match where they're actually able. And so I get where this is different than me saying, I have imposter syndrome with basketball. Let's say it's like, well, I actually don't have the skills. Like I don't practice. I've really never
I
played.
am an imposter
Yeah,
with
so I'm
basketball.
definitely
That's
an
just true.
imposter, basketball player, right? So that's different than that. This is more about you have the skills, you have something to offer, but people go into so much doubt about it that it stops them, and they do a lot of like spiraling, looping about it.
Yeah. Oh, what was I reading? I was reading a book by Brendan Burchard this last week called High Performance Habits, which I actually think you would love. I was going to tell you about it.
Yes.
It's a quick and dirty read in the sense of like if you've been in the game and like you're in it and choosing and stuff. There's a lot of things that he says that kind of articulate what you already naturally know. But for people that are like kind of dancing around starting something, he says some things, and I'm going to butcher, but I'll try, that I think are really important to get. And one of the primary energies that he really presents in the book is like, look, if you're going to start something new or you're going to be high performing anywhere, which really like we can break that apart and kind of go, well, this is very individual, high performing from your point of view. You're going to get dirty, it's going to be messy, and you're going to be uncomfortable. That's essentially like you just got to get ready to pull your big girl panties up and like, get to work. So I loved that because it paralleled a lot of the things that I talk about too. The reason I bring that up with imposter syndrome is that what I see a lot of people doing, and what I have done also, is exactly that, dance around a choice, feeling like a fraud, feeling like I can't, feeling like, and then the moment I choose to go forward, choose the program, to create something, all of those feelings become irrelevant. They just fade away. And the choice then and the activity associated with that choice and the actions you're just naturally taking usurp the feeling. And so to me, that's always been my go-to when I'm walking around like feeling like a fraud. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. So how you handle it?
What I was getting from that was just like the Nike, just do it. Like, just do it. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, it doesn't matter in the sense of like all the feelings that were coming up ahead of time really just stopped you, or like they paralyze you. And that's where I kind of get that. No, something else.
This is the thing that drives me crazy though. People go, well, these feelings are stopping me. No, there is nobody that can stop you except for you.
It's true.
Nobody can stop you except for you. And so I appreciate articulation of things more than anybody. And I love that we're putting names to things and calling things things. But if you stop there and you go, well, I have imposter syndrome. Is this true? That'd be my first question. Or is it that you're unwilling to choose, which may be more true? And is it something you have to get drugs for or get over? Or is it something you have to be willing to just go, fuck it, I'm a gift, and choose in a different direction? And I guess my question to you is like, have you ever dealt with this? Is this something that
No,
like,
never, of course, never, ever.
you're perfect?
My literally, that's exactly my feedback in my pre-doctoral internship. I remember they're just like, you doubt yourself basically so much. And so they're really just trying to get that based on where I was at and my abilities, like it just kind of own it, step into it, choose it. And it was just different at the time. I was like, okay, I guess, but I'm trying to be like humble, be too cocky, or it was something about not wanting to embody a more confident energy. And I mean, certainly this year, and like, as you know, being kind of my first year in business and my business evolving and things like that, and now working with entrepreneurs, it's kind of like, I can definitely go into that. Well, like, I've been on social media for a couple of years, but I've done business for a year. I'm like, yeah, I know some things, but I don't know all the things. And so like, what really can I teach? And it's kind of like just putting words to the energy of wanting to translate that to folks. Like, what am I teaching? What is okay for me to teach? Right. And I think this also comes from the system in the sense of like, well, you have to do this many degrees, get this many hours in order to be certified to teach something. And I'm like, well, and what else is possible with that?
I think I say this in almost every episode, but to me, it's both, right? Like, I think we're so used to like going, well, it's either this or this. Well, either you use your natural abilities and you just like, you have them, like run with them, or you go educate yourself. So we tend to even do black and white with those two things. To me, it's like this combination of both things. Yeah. First of all, like without choosing stuff, you can't get awareness of stuff. So like you in particular have a natural ability with business. So do I. When I realized that I wanted to, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when I realized I wanted to start working with other entrepreneurs to encourage them and support them and empower them to be great too, I didn't know how I wanted to do that, just that I could. I knew that I could, and I knew that I wanted to. I kind of had those two things, and I knew I had some innate capacities from like, building things for other people and myself. So I had bits and pieces of information, which I think is where we all start. Like, even when you've gone and gotten your degree, like you did, when you start, okay, actually, this is a question. Like, so you went and got degrees, like a lot of degrees. You have a PhD?
Yes, SID, but it's like it's similar.
Sweet Lord Jesus. So my question for you is like, so you got your degree, when you went out and into the job world, were you comfortable?
No. Okay. No, that's the thing. It's like, I got my master's and I was like, there is no way I can like do the thing and be a therapist. And have to get more information. Then I got my PsyD and I was like, this is it, really? And so now I've done certification after certification after certification. Yeah. And I was really getting that. I was like, well, at this point, geez Louise, I'm like seeking outside of myself to confirm what I already could offer.
Yeah. So you're telling me that you've never been comfortable at any point, not as a, like you became a new facilitator. So now are you comfortable?
No, no, I'm wildly uncomfortable. More and more every day. I mean, because it's like I just continue to reach.
Uncomfortable. I basically tell people, I'm like, look, when you're in the process of creating yourself, which is basically all the time, you're going to be uncomfortable like that. Yeah. Let that be your new comfort zone, is the uncomfort of creation. Yeah, I forget what I was going with. Well, I guess my point was like, you even got all these, psychology degrees. And then even when it came time to like going out and getting a job or becoming a part of the world or whatever that means, you weren't comfortable. So, it isn't, as it turns out, a result of having enough education that brings the comfort. It's the willingness to be uncomfortable that brings the results.
Yeah. Something's popping for me right now, and I'm getting like, is it like the control or the willing to be messy? Because I get the imposter syndrome almost shields one from just stepping out and being messy and getting it wrong versus like needing to control it and do it right and perfect. And what I mean?
Yeah, and that really plays into the coping conversation that I'm having in my business. Starting Thursday, I have a 3-part coping call because we learn so much. We learn to cope. We learn to cope with all kinds of things. And then, so those of us that are naturally make ourselves wrong, and need to get it right in order to not be wrong. Those two things sort of go hand in hand. Develop our coping mechanisms kind of from that place. So that's where the controls come in, because it's like, well, I've learned that to not be wrong, I can only do this, this, and this, because this is my safety. I can definitely know I'm right in this zone. Outside of the zone, I don't know if I'm right. And so that requires a willingness to be wrong, which a lot of people never choose beyond and let themselves be stopped by. And I recognized that really, really early on. I mean, when I became a certified facilitator fairly quickly, 8 months into finding access consciousness, and it was like I had all the freedom and all the ability to create, and I sat on it for like a year and a half, and I just worked for someone else. And there was brilliance in that. I built my social media presence, and more people got to know me, and I learned some stuff that I didn't know before. But it still came to the day when I had to choose something. I was either... And of course, I created it to be super intense. Like I had no money left, and I quit my job, and like, of course,
Sounds fun.
Dramatic. But okay, fine. I forced my own hand. It was like choose or die, and I chose, and I leapt, and I created something, and I made my first like $900 online, and I was like, holy fuck, maybe I can do this. And losing my point again. Where did I start with this?
Gosh, well, I was following the imposter part of like you created space for that time before actually choosing it. Like things had to get really uncomfortable before.
And I was saying, like, going outside the small zone where you can be right into the zone where you aren't certain you're right. In fact, you're pretty sure you're going to be wrong. But leaving what I did is I created myself, like, basically you don't have a choice. You just have to risk and dare to be wrong, because no money, first of all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but it's like looking at, if you are doing that, like, are you keeping your life small with the reason and justification that you've discovered? Because that's really, I mean, imposter syndrome is helpful in that it articulates a thing that we do. And kind of unhelpful in that it's used as a diagnosis of like, well, you have this. Well, do you? Or do you have a really immense ability to, be aware, for example, because what's heavy is never true. So are you aware of fear? Are you aware of energies that you're using as yours? And are you just simply stopping yourself from going beyond that right zone into the zone where you could be wrong? And if that's the case, like, what would it take to be willing to be wrong was the question I started asking myself. And that's where that phrase, that 3-part phrase, do it wrong, do it badly, do it anyway, came from. Because I had to fucking encourage myself. I was like, well, I don't know how to do this. Like, which is true. Like, I didn't necessarily have the education to do all the things that I was doing. I had to teach myself on the fly. And then I read somewhere, the definition of an entrepreneur is somebody who like leaps off the cliff and builds the plane on the way down. And I'm like, that would be Crystal, builds the plane on the way down, Crawford.
Well, I mean, that's what I really got about you and like listening to your podcast and show for years, because you were just like talking about things right where you were at. You know what I mean? You're just like, this is what I'm learning, and this is what it's worked for me. This is what really hasn't worked for me. And I was just like, oh my God, it was just so nice, refreshing to have that transparency of just like, you're just creating versus people who are trying to pose an image online, right? I mean, certainly, people share what they want to share, and they can kind of manipulate what they want to be seen. You know what I mean? And they can manipulate it to be a certain way of like, oh, I got it all together, and I'm always, and I'm like, that's not true. Not true. You didn't see that person having the breakdown the day before, or things not always working out and whatnot. But it's like, because I found more trust in the vulnerability with you than someone's presenting as like perfect, has it all together all the time. You know what I mean?
Which is like something for all of you guys listening to take note of that, take note of who you admire and go, how can I be that? Like, first of all, where am I that I'm not acknowledging? And I love that so much. What would it take for me to duplicate that in the world? That's one of the ways that you can use your admiration of somebody to create rather than compare, I guess. But yeah, I mean, and I guess this imposter thing, I mean, the other thing that I see now that I've been doing this like 10 years is we also have no clue how different we are, and that our difference is actually a gift, and that there is nobody else like us. So we feel like an imposter in a world where we can't see anybody else that is what we are.
I love that, because like lately I've been, even with some of my content, I'm like, well, no one else is really saying it this
Nobody
way,
else is
right?
saying
And
it
then I'm
this
like, wait,
way.
so am I wrong? Like I should, because I have to make
Right.
sure I confirm it with all my other reference points. Something
Right.
to
When
that
in
effect.
truth, there's nobody else like you.
Yeah.
So you can't go, so you do go looking for somebody else like you, and then you don't see it. And then that's exactly what happens. You go into the self-doubt and like, oh, I don't
I'm
know, you know.
wrong.
Yeah. Instead of getting, oh my God, I'm really different. Okay, cool. Like, how can I expand on this? But that's just not where we naturally go.
Mhm.
So like, that's the other thing that's getting stronger for me, of like, nope, just different. I'm just different. Nobody else is going to say this the way that I am. But that's after 10 years of really like choosing and choosing and choosing and choosing and choosing and facing all the time, constantly, in every different way, you know, feeling wrong, feeling bad. I can't tell you how many times after my Crystal Crawford show that I have gotten off and sobbed because I'm like, I didn't say anything. It was the worst show ever. And then, you know, of course, all the feedback comes in of like, oh my God, that was like life-changing. And so it just never, it kind of never ends, the places where you discover that you secretly think you're shit and you're, you know, your difference and the way things come out of you is terrible.
Yeah.
And I think that's just worth saying, because like, it's like, if you know you're always going to kind of be facing that, then you'll either spend your life not creating, or you'll create. You'll be the person that didn't or the person that did. And which one do you want to be?
God, yeah, it's so easy to go into that, easy in the sense of like, we're all just kind of replay in my head over and over again, maybe something I said to the group or whatever. I'm like, oh, but like, is that what I meant? Or should I have not said it that way? And was that really the best way to facilitate? It's just like, oh my gosh. But, you know, in the moment, there was a sense of flow and it was coming out, came out for a reason. And so what does it take to just really lean into that? But what I'm getting is just a choice every freaking day to just show up again, show up again, show up again, you know?
Yeah. And it's probably 20 times a day or 30
Yeah,
times a day,
yeah,
depending on what you're doing, honestly.
wanted
Like,
it to be one time a day.
no, it's not. It's not. And I mean, you know, you and I chatted about this earlier, where you have these times where you're just like, everything's shit, right?
Mhm.
It's all changing and it's like intense. And,
Yeah.
you know, so on those days, it's 50 times a day, or just go to bed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's okay too.
Mhm.
But Julia said here, she said the opposite also. I'm thinking that I'm not doing anything more special or different than others. So why would they
Mhm.
watch me? So there's the flip side of that too. And it doesn't, yeah. I mean, in both instances going, okay, well, what if I'm not special? Fuck it. I'm a gift. Like, I mean, both instances require that moment where you're going to have a come to Jesus conversation with yourself and go, well, I'm either going to use this to stop and not, or I'm going to choose it. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I have to do that with myself. Even now.
You first said that, like, it was like a couple years ago on like a Christmas, I think, on Facebook. You're like, fuck it, I'm the gift. I was just like,
I got that.
Oh my gosh. Like, I was like, yeah, like that energy.
And it really is that, because you have to kind of, at some point, you've either got to like stay wrapped up in all the thinking that goes with like, well, what if, you know, the spirals that sends you in, or you've got to like cut through it and go, okay, Jesus H Christ in a basket. Am I going to sit here and like overthink this all day, or something else?
Yeah.
And so,
it's
you know,
I like my nervous system. It's just like the paralyzation is deafening. So I want to actually go back to that, because we were talking about the feelings thing, and we're saying, okay, well, like the feelings don't stop you, you stop you. And so at some point I get where there's some knowledge, information around folks to be able to regulate their nervous system enough so that it doesn't become like almost too like, you know, you've had panic attacks before, yes, in the past? No, never. Okay. So there's this point in the panic.
Suicidal.
Right. Yeah, no, I know. That's what I was wondering. Okay. So there's a point within the panic attack where it's kind of like there is no return. The body's really taken over, and it's kind of like you can kind of ride the wave of the sensations. But if you can catch it sooner, you can re-regulate your body with more ease, so to speak. So this is where I'm wondering, like, I'm saying the physiological part takes over.
Yeah, I am dealing with something a particular trigger that keeps recurring around a particular topic, and that is occurring. It's like that thing will occur, and then I have a particular thought that I haven't identified what that thought is yet, but once I have it, I'm in the slide. I'm like, I'm weird for at least 3 to 4 hours. I have a good cry. I need to I literally yesterday sat with and that was what my episode, my Crystal Crawford show, is actually going to be about that today, like a coping, I forget what I called it, but it's basically a coping exercise where you sit with yourself and you pull apart this galump that has created this slide down into a place where you're just non-functional. So I still do have those occur, not around panic, but so I guess what I would say about that is, like, I think we all do coping different, right? Mm-hmm. So some of us take ourselves out of being present with panic. Some of us take ourselves out of being present with anger or resentment or, stonewalling. Like, there's a lot of different ways that this occurs, but I think it speaks to what you're talking about. And I mean, I had to sit with myself. It was probably 4 hours that I was with me and just like journaling and looking at it and pulling it apart, and really, for me, using access consciousness tools like pock and potting things and allowing my body to calm down. But it wasn't just allowing my body to calm down. It was looking at the points of view, creating the slide, because I was holding on to this deep pit I was in based on the points of view that I had around it. So I had to really look at the points of view. And once I got to the point of view that was like the pin, it let go and my body relaxed. So I think you can kind of go after it 2 different ways. You can go after it like from an energetic point of view place. You can go after it from a physical, but what both of those tactics do is they interrupt. Interrupt the thing.
Yeah. Well, from that, I was kind of like, oh, what you were doing there, in my sense, was almost relaxing or easing into the process, leaning in rather than continuing to force something else, like must get out of this or must keep working because I've decided I'm going to get X done today, versus, okay, what is this? Can I lean into this, explore, extrapolate, take the space and time for that? Because that's not always what I do. Like, I'm just like, go, 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 go in generator mode, versus like really listening to that energy and allowing that to be the contribution that does actually propel you to the next place.
Well, I guess the thing for me, or the priority I have in my world, isn't just getting the things done. The priority that is also right at the top of my list is getting access to more of me, and what these situations, what you want to have as your life, who you have in your life, all the situations you have in your life, everything you've been through is actually the possibility of becoming more of you. It isn't just the death of you. And I think I had to really, I don't know what changed that for me, but I started to get like, okay, I had a really hard time with my mom, for example. She comes up a lot in my examples. She's, so much about that. But that was either going to be the thing that destroyed me, or it was going to be the dynamic and the relationship and the thing that I used to get access to more ease, to get access to more glory, to get access to more of my ability to choose and go around all the coping that I did with it before. So to me, that's just as valuable as accomplishing or pushing myself forward into the tasks or the things that I've decided I need to do. Because if I can get access to more of me via this fucking trigger, then bring on the fucking trigger. Because like, I am going to use the shit out of that motherfucker to get greater. And that's my point of view about everything. And I think that's why imposter syndrome doesn't even really register for me, because at some point I turn around and face the thing and go, bring it. Okay, I don't know how to do this. I will avoid, and like, I didn't know how to file my back taxes, and I had all kinds of questions, and there was so much learning curve involved in global taxation, et cetera. And I avoided it for 4 years. But when I turned around to face it, I was like, bring it on. What do I need to read? So maybe that's how I do it. And I'm pretty aggressive. But that might be worth looking at for some of you, and that's to go, am I going to keep letting this thing, this topic, this choice, this relationship get the better of me, or am I going to face it and go, what is required here, and get greater?
Yeah, I mean, not being at effect of it. Something earlier you're saying regarding kind of like wanting the trigger to get more access to you versus the doing. And I was like, oh, it's because like the doing's a distraction sometimes,
Sometimes, and sometimes not. I mean, so
Yeah.
it's like you can't always lump it into
Yeah.
like, if you're doing, you're distracted. No, I
Yeah.
mean, there's
Yeah.
a lot of, when you're being you, there's a lot of doing you naturally do because you like to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it might be worth looking at just what it might be worth looking at what your priorities are. I don't know if that's the way to look at it, but
Yeah.
gosh, if you were being kind to you, maybe that's a thing to look at. If you were being kind to you and giving you space, like what could you choose?
A question. A question, though, really, because that's what's going to create more. Yeah, because it just creates something different. Immediately the space changes. So what would you say then is kind of the takeaway or actionable step for folks if they feel like they're dealing with imposter syndrome stuff?
Well, personally, I would like sit down with that, like go take it on a date. I might need to like create a thing around this because this is kind of my response to a lot of different things lately. It's like, go take your point of view on a date and go, okay, I'm an imposter.
Now what?
I mean, is it true?
You're like seducing it.
Like,
your point of
look
view.
at it and go, well, is it true? First of all, if it is true, would I be willing to be it? Like, so this is where you take your point of view on a date and you just kind of like look at it this way and then look at it this way. And then like, well, you're just a point of view. I mean, I can date you and marry you, or I can kick you to the curb, or I can just go wonder if you're even real. And that's personally what I would do. So go take your point of view on a date, like go to a coffee shop, bring a journal and go, well, is it true? Is it real? I'm doing a lot of pain around this. I'm doing a lot of stopping. I guess I could, if we separated those two things and looked at them as different universes of, okay, I'm stopping. Okay, good. This is what I'm using to justify stopping. How's that working? So, is it working? Is this the life that I want to live? Because I'm creating this.
Yeah.
I am choosing this. This is what I'm choosing to create from this. Is that working for me? Or, is there something else I can choose that would actually work better for me? Because once you shine a light on something, that's when you start to get if it's got any power. Shine the light on it, man. Put it in the spotlight. See if it's true. Is it even yours? Did you buy it from somebody? Did your mom do imposter syndrome and you got that was the way to be? Like, put some light on it and see if it survives. And then really look at what do you want to choose?
Yeah.
I mean, you could create from this for the rest of your life. Is that going to work for you? And see what comes up.
I'm just, I was like, that was such an elegant way to put it. I was going to be like, well, cry and then choose it anyway.
Like, just like your plan
to cry and just choose it anyway, because that's show up and like if your throat cracks, you get hives or whatever, all that anxiety stuff that shows up, and just choose it anyway and be willing to have it be messy and imperfect and show that others can choose that too.
Yeah.
Because it's like, on here we just show the like highlight moments and it's not all that. So everyone's showing up the mess they are, the mess they be.
Be the glorious hot mess you truly be. Fuck it. You're a gift. You don't even have to believe that. Just say it a lot. Fuck it. I'm a gift. At some point.
Capital G.
Cool. Well, I have a 3-part call coming up this Thursday on coping. And if you're watching this in the future, it's called Ending the Stress. And you can very likely find it in my shop. If you'd like to be live and you've never done an Access Consciousness class before, come join us. You can find it on my website at crystaljoycrawford.com. And what is happening?
My membership is ongoing. It turned into be an open door thing. So people are welcome to come in, super low cost, to get, content and a couple live calls a month. And, the same kind of idea of exploring psychology, energetics, and consciousness, a little bit different. But yeah, I'd love to have you.
All right. Well, if you guys got anything out of this, please share it. Help us spread the word. We are
True
starting
mental health.
to feel like we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Some point. Episode 1000. We'll get it.
All right, you guys. We adore you so much. Share this if you loved it, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.